I don't think so. I think he had his mindset already where he was going. That's just my opinion.
So you thought he was going to LA all along?
Yeah.
When you met him and posted him?
I just I don't know, just a gut feeling, I guess I will say.
As I've said, they play off the emotion. The atmosphere here plays off their emotion, and we've seen that for the last several years, even in regular season games. Just something as simple as a single, and you see the guy throwing the bat 30 feet in the air, that really gets the crowd going here, and that's just that is kind of part of their game, is trying to get under your skin and trying to have the emotion come out and get you to do something that you're not normally doing. And
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Marty Time TV. I'm Marty Caswell. We are brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. I'm sure you guys can see a very familiar face, Dylan Hernandez, LA Times. Dylan, this is Padres and Dodgers for the first time in 2025. I wasn't planning to start that way with Manny Machado talking about Roki Sasaki. And then I remembered, I remember the Max Muncy thing about the Padres bat flipping on a single 30 feet in the air. So I'm hoping the Padres can find some offense tonight. Yesterday they had 3 hits and they won a game. But every time the Padres get a single, I'm expecting a 30-foot bat flip. How are you today?
Oh, that'd be perfect, wouldn't it?
It was perfect.
A great way to, it kind of reminds you again, like just frankly, like you said, like the emotions, right, that are kind of associated with this series. Now, I think the Padres beating the Dodgers, in 21 really kind of changed the dynamic of this whole thing here. Now it's not just some aspirational team. It's a team that's a legitimate threat now. I think there's legitimate dislike, frankly, between the two teams, at least on the field. We saw last year we saw Tatis who bets his podcast right before the thing, but I think once the teams kind of get out on the field and go to metaphorical war here, there's an there's an intensity to this thing that you don't find anywhere else, and I think so many rivalries I do feel are kind of kept up by the fan bases. Right now, Dodgers, Giants, it's a thing for the fans, right?
Yeah.
This is what makes this one fun, is that it seems like a legitimate thing between the players too.
100%. And I played that piece by Max, the clip by Max Muncy. I was thinking about this yesterday. I'm not sure who the most hated Padre player is for Dodger fans. It's easily going to be Manny Machado. But when it comes to the Dodgers, there's so many, right? There's Mookie Betts, there's Max Muncy, and if Roki Sasaki were in this series, even though he's never pitched against the Padres, he would be on that list as well.
Yeah. I mean, they don't like that, I guess. What did Betts do to them other than
probably just a lot of home runs. He finds ways to beat them. They don't like Mookie Betts. Former Red Sox, Dodger.
Yeah. Do they boo Otani?
They will boo Otani, but it's not going to be as overwhelming as it is for Max Muncy. The Max Muncy hate is real. When Justin Turner came into San Diego a couple of weeks ago, he heard it just because he's a former Dodger. He's on that list too. There's no shortage of dislike for this Padres team. And I'm sure every single time that Dave Roberts comes out for a pitching change, man, he's going to hear it, because I'm sure the Padres fans haven't forgotten that whole exchange with him and Manny Machado during the dugout, where apparently Manny tried to assault him with a baseball, rolling a baseball into the dugout.
Yeah, well, Max Muncy is kind of an underrated troll. That's why I was laughing when we came out of that intro. Right, was I totally forgot about this. This is pretty good stuff.
Yeah. So is that true? Do you think the Padres intentionally try to get under their skin by the bat flipping and the flair and the way they play? And I feel like a lot of that energy is gone. It's changed because the Padres offense has struggled. Tatis he's usually the centerpiece of that. He hasn't been the same player. And Jurickson Profar was one of those Dodgers antagonists. He was part of that as well, and he's gone too.
Yeah, that's why, in the offseason, my biggest thing on the Padres wish list, right? And it's a good thing they didn't listen to me, but my number one thing on the Padres wish list was Jurickson Profar back to the Padres, because I thought he was so great for the rivalry, right? The whole home run kind of thing in the corner there in left field at Dodger Stadium, I thought was just beautiful.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's intentional, hey, this is what we need to do to get in their heads. I think that's who the Padres are. And I think because it's very much not the way the Dodgers are in a way, right? If anything, I find myself every now and then I'll kind of joke like, man, don't you, I'll turn to Jack Harris, our beat guy, and I'll be like, don't you miss Puig? Just because, right, the volatile, the Manny Ramirez is, right, just kind of the volatile personalities they kind of don't have anymore, right? I mean, even, I think Mookie Betts has kind of taken it upon himself. He's noticed probably a vacancy of leadership in the clubhouse. So he's kind of gone out of his way to try to be more vocal and stuff. But, between him, Freeman, and Otani, they're three pretty somewhat low-key personalities, and they kind of don't have that. And I just think it's kind of and I think, again, that's
Are you saying they're boring? Are you calling the Dodgers
boring? Yes, they're boring. They're all nice guys, but they're kind of
boring?
like,
The Dodgers are boring, and yeah. Yeah, you being half Japanese as I am. That's the Japanese side of being polite.
Yeah. The Padres are like.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just gonna say, and the Padres are just very kind of like, it's a very kind of emotional type of team. I think they're just probably annoys the other, right? I mean, so much paid attention to like how the Padres annoy the Dodgers, but I'm guessing it's probably the other way too, right? There's probably something about the way the Dodgers go about their business that probably annoys, the Padres, right? Or look at these corporate, right, overpaid, whatever, and that's probably got to annoy them. I think, the fact that like Machado, was a Dodger rental for a seat, right, for a few months. I mean, the Dodgers basically took him for a test drive and then said, you know what, no,
we're
thank
good.
you, right?
Yeah.
And athletes, I mean, we know, right? I mean, it's kind of the smallest things. I mean, you'll see these things about like, what drove you to become a major leaguer, and you'll always find this player. It's like my fourth grade teacher told me to find another goal or something. And the guy, like, here's the guy like 20 years later, like hanging on to that, right? I mean, you gotta be petty, honestly, to be able to perform, to become that good at a sport, I think. And so, I'm sure, again, like there's little things, again, I'm sure Machado probably doesn't have like the warmest feelings towards the Dodgers,
No.
and all these things just kind of, and Otani's kind of like a low key troll too, right? I mean, you saw the thing against the Diamondbacks when, Gurriel did his like home run celebration and Otani mimicked it, a few days later. But it's just kind of, I'm just looking forward to this just because it's like baseball season is so long. There's so many games that you just kind of, right, that blend into the others that, anytime you have a series, where it's like, okay, this is like an event, going to be fun, right? I think it just kind of, it's a nice break from the monotony. And I will say this about, you mentioned how the Padres haven't scored. Kind of takes me back to like this Yankees series, right, where the Dodgers-Yankees thing kind of became a thing. And the Dodgers, went in, they weren't playing well. All the focus was on just all the pitchers that were hurt. And the Yankees come in, and then these rivalries, they have like their own kind of time space bubble, right? Where it kind of doesn't matter what the teams have been doing before or after, just when these two teams meet, like certain things happen. And so I don't think that this is the type of series where, okay, yeah, the Padres haven't hit well. Like my guess is that they're going to start hitting here, right? Now, part of it is because the Dodgers, like they don't have anybody to pitch, right? They don't really have any pitchers right now. But I also think that, like, if you look at the pitching matchups, honestly, you have to just think like, oh, shoot, the Padres have a great chance of sweeping this thing. I don't think it's going to go down that easy either from that end, right? I think just because it's Padres-Dodgers, things are going to happen, and probably like the sport you see it in the most, honestly, right, is like soccer, right? Because like you talk about all these like local derbies and stuff, that happen throughout the world. And, so many times it's been like one team's on top of the standings, one team's at the bottom of the standings, and like they play, and next thing you know, it's like it's you can barely separate the two teams. And so my guess is that just because, again, they're bringing that energy into it, my guess is that these games are going to be very close, very exciting. And maybe these are, for either team, maybe this is a series that really gets them started and kind of gets them going on a run, because we haven't really seen that from either team, frankly.
No, you're completely right. Can you? I'm sorry, you guys, for 1 second. I'm having tech issues with my microphone. Dylan, can you hear me? Okay, is my mic coming through?
You're totally good.
Okay, you can. Okay, good deal. All right, you mentioned the pitching matchup. This is not a sexy matchup. It's Dustable Tonight maybe is the big one. Dustin May versus Nick Pivetta. It's the Padres' biggest free agent splash of the offseason. The Gavin Sheets thing is a different conversation. It's listed as TBD for tomorrow night versus Dylan Cease.
Yep.
And excuse me if I don't know this, Wroblewski, who is Robleski versus Randy Vasquez? I mean, this isn't the guys on the IL, right? No Sasaki, no Blake Snell, who I'm sure the Padres fans would like to have seen, and Tyler Glasnow has been transferred to the 60 day. What's going on with its rotation, and who is Robleski?
Yeah, Justin Robleski. He's like one of those 4A guys. He's probably a little bit too old now to be considered like a legitimate prospect. And I think, right, so they just had to put Tony Gonsolin on the IL the other day.
Right.
And I think what's kind of scary where the Dodgers are, it's like, look, we've seen kind of the top of the rotation have problems in the past, right? Like last year, Glasnow got hurt then too. Yamamoto missed a bunch of time last year. And that's kind of happened right now. Snell's down, Glasnow's down, so you're arguably without 1 and 2. Now, what's a little bit different this year is that I think the injuries to the young pitchers from the past 2 seasons have really kind of caught up to them, right? Because what it's done is really kind of taken away their depth, and I've always said, I feel the Dodgers at any time, for the majority of these last like 5 years, they've always had like 10 guys in their organization who can beat the Rockies on a Tuesday, right? And you might say like, okay, well, that's not that great, whatever, but like that's the reality. That's how you win that's how you win a division, is by piling up wins, right? And they've had like a lot of guys that like, okay, you might not want to run them out in game 3 of a playoff series, but for like a midweek game against the Cincinnati Reds, go ahead, right? And they've had like a lot of guys that can kind of fill these roles, and from Emmett Sheehan, Gavin Stone, River Ryan are the kind of the ones that pop into my head. They've always had like these young arms that come up, they throw hard. Now those guys have all been kind of like, that layer of depth has been decimated, and to me, the Gonsolin, Kershaw, and who is the other kid? They got a kid in their rotation right
Kershaw
now.
that you wrote about. You wrote about the Padres, the Dodgers needing Clayton Kershaw because they were so absolutely decimated. And I feel like the Dodgers and Padres are limping into this series with more similar because of the injuries in the pitching rotation. It's a bummer for me as someone who likes, I like the gamemanship, I like the storylines. No Yu Darvish in this series. I don't know when he's going to return. Michael King, man, that could be a July situation. But and the same thing. I mean, they're not going to see Yamamoto because of how the rotation's working out, but also no Sasaki, which I wanted to watch him pitch, right? As a half Japanese, I wanted to watch Sasaki, but it's just remarkable that right now, man, they're throwing at guys that most of their fan base have never heard of. Padres are relying on Stephen Kolek. They need Randy Vasquez to be more than a number 4, number 5 starter. Brian Berger yesterday, so they're both kind of a mess pitching wise.
Yeah, and I think and you look at the Padres, they kind of going forward from here. They need, they need these guys back, right? They need King back. They need Darvish back if they want to make noise in October. I think the Dodgers probably have a little bit more wiggle room in terms of, right? I don't think they need both Snell and Glasnow back. I mean, obviously that would be nice, but they could probably deal with, okay, as long as they get one of those 2 guys back, and maybe if Otani's pitching well, right? Again, Gonsolin's, I guess, part of that list. Even May right now, I still kind of consider him, even though he's technically in the rotation, to me, he's still kind of injured in the sense that he's coming back from an injury, right? And he's still kind of trying to find himself. We haven't seen him be kind of the pre-injury Dustin May yet, and so now he's had some.
Hang on for 1 second, Dylan. Okay, go ahead.
He's had a couple good games. Oh, a couple bad ones, so he's still kind of trying to find. Sorry.
Guys, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what's happening. I am plugged into, I need to move. I need to leave PB because apparently the internet here is terrible. So I apologize, Dylan, what you're saying. All right. So right now for this series, it's just a shame that baseball this is like, as you have alluded to on the MLB's own website, this is one of the better rivalries in baseball. It's June 9th. They're playing for the first time. Dodgers are 39-27, Padres 37-27. Considering their roster, this is a World Series team. Most of these players are back. They went and spent the offseason, right? They won the offseason. The Padres are just, 2 games behind them. Any surprises? Is this a reflection on more of the Dodgers or more of who the Padres are?
Probably, a combination of the 2. I mean, I do think, look, I legitimately thought that the Dodgers were going to have a shot at breaking the single season wins record,
Right.
Then like injury, I mean, that's part of the sport. The injuries happened. I do think, on the Padres end, probably the attrition wasn't as like severe as we thought it might be, right? I think think we thought like, okay, well, some of the losses that they had, like maybe they wouldn't be this competitive. So I think it's, good on the Padres for keeping themselves there. And, with the Dodgers here too, they're probably like in week 2 of this 4-week stretch where it's just kind of brutal. I think every team they're going to play in this span is going to be is playoff bound. Right. So what you do have is this thing where I do think if the Dodgers can kind of tread water through these next couple of weeks and get out on the other side and start getting guys back, there's a good chance they might run away with this thing right now. If I'm them, I'm a little bit nervous that I'm kind of letting these other 2 teams kind of hang around, right? Because we have seen the Padres, obviously, the way they closed the season last year. And the Giants have probably, at this point, the best pitching in the division, not just in terms of having a solid rotation. They have the best bullpen, and I think from both teams' perspective, by the way, right, the Dodgers and the Padres, if they really want to make noise in October, getting that first round bye is huge, right? Especially given the state of both teams' pitching staffs. Like, you don't want to have to play kind of in that first round right now. And, it seems like, right, the Mets right now have separated themselves. Now they're both, I think, within the Dodgers and Padres within striking distance of the Cubs. But I think it's going to be very important for, again, if you really want to make noise in October, to get that first round bye. And I think that's, we're getting kind of caught up in this discussion about the division. But I think, again, finishing as a top 2 seed in the league and getting that first round bye is going to be really crucial.
Completely agree. And by the way, I'm expecting both Mike Schilt and Dave Roberts to manage. I'm expecting 3.5-hour games the next 3 days. Apologize to all your beat writers, the LA Times, all of them, because these games absolutely do matter. I know you can say, oh, it's June. No, it matters because of what you're talking about. And the whole tiebreaker scenario, these teams play each other very, very well. And if you're the Padres, man, this series matters for potential tie-breaking in the playoffs, home field advantage, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and yeah, it is kind of weird, right? I mean, I do think it speaks to, again, just the way these 2 teams have been run, right? At least in terms of like fielding, right? Both teams have made the necessary financial incentives to kind of buffer up against, right, kind of the injury stuff. And if you look back, I remember years ago, the Dodgers former trainer Stan Conti kind of showed me some numbers about how much team success correlates to like injuries, right? Basically, the team, what his research showed, with the healthiest teams were the ones that won the most, And so, I think you give kind of kudos to both Dodgers and Padres ownership groups for kind of building in some margin for error there, right? I mean, look, the reality is most teams, you lose Tyler Glass now, that in itself would not, right? That would kill you. The Dodgers, last year Glass now gets hurt. Okay, well, let's go get Snell, and they both got hurt. And somehow
Dodgers should have known that on Snell.
They're still in first place, right? And again, I think, the Padres, obviously, they're not quite spending like they did like maybe a couple years ago, but they're still, out there putting a really kind of competitive product on the field. And it's great that the fans have, and I think the reward for that is that it's been good for the sport. This is the most, I know you mentioned earlier, one of the best sport rivalries in the sport. To me, it is the best rivalry in the sport right now, because I just don't think there's one that kind of draws up as immediate, and it's intense and emotion right now, right? And, I know you have Yankees, Red Sox, but it's not what it used to be, right?
No.
And I think with both of these teams, I think there is this feel that like, hey, we can win the whole thing, right? And it's a team that's geographically closest to us in our division that might be the problem. I think that's fantastic.
Okay. Is this the longest interview you've done so far this season where no one's really asked you about Shohei Otani? I mean, we're almost 20 minutes in. I have not asked you about Otani. I know he's going to throw a sim game at Petco Park today, but how shocking that I have not asked you about Shohei Otani and the ridiculous season he's having.
Yeah, I get, I'm trying to think about that, because we film for the LA Times, on our website. We do like a weekly thing with, I do a weekly thing with Plasky and Jack Harris. There's just so much going on here, right? That they've kind of replaced the Lakers, of like the Shaq and Kobe era. Back then, anything happened with the Lakers, it was like news, we can talk about, Max Muncy's defense, and people are interested, right? So, I think with Otani, I mean, it is kind of, it's weird because I do think how good he is has become almost like a given, And sometimes, and it's
Yeah.
weird, right? Because when you talk about concerns of the team, a lot of it is about, right now it's kind of like Muncy's defense. Should Betts stay at short? Obviously, the rotation, then we got the bullpen and Tanner Scott, especially. It's kind of weird, right? That Otani is almost kind of getting overlooked in a way.
He's expected.
Yeah, and you know what though? He will be a topic of discussion soon because I think they're expecting him to be back on the mound in a game sometime after the All-Star break. And to me, we got to remember, right? So he got hurt the first Tommy John that he had. He was in 2018 as a rookie. Didn't pitch 2019. Came back in the COVID year. That did not go well, right? That lasted only 2 starts. Now he came back in 21. That was his first kind of full bore, right? That's when he won his first MVP award. And he finished that season great. First half of the season, he talked about it being like, he sounded like a lot of other guys coming back from Tommy John, that he didn't quite have the feel yet, right? And it took him time to kind of build up to that point. So, to me, what's going to be really interesting is how long will it take for him to kind of get that feel back? Because, on one hand, look, he's Shohei Otani. And if there's any guy that can like come off Tommy John and just be like good right away, it would be him. That said, that's not the type of thing I think that you can really count on if you're the Dodgers, right? I mean, I think you have to expect them to struggle a little bit. So, I mean, he's just been amazing at the plate. He's on pace to hit more home runs than he did last year. And to me, it's not just like the numbers, right? It's also about like when, the Yankee game, Judge hits a home run in the top of the first. Otani comes back, hits a home run right away. Later hits a home run that kind of starts the rally that puts the Dodgers in front. There's so many kind of these moments, and I think even just kind of go back to last year, right? Even if a guy has like an MVP season, usually you're talking about like 2-3 games that you really kind of remember.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of amazing at one point, we were kind of doing like going through Otani's like list of great games. And there were like 15 games, right? Like where it was just like, oh yeah, he did that and he did that and he did that, and I just started watching that Apple documentary that they did on the World Series. And, before Freddie's home run, 2 batters earlier, Otani comes up and you hear Flaherty talking about, oh, shows up, he's going to hit a home run, right? I mean, it's almost become expected, and the regularity at which he can deliver that, to me, is just incredible, because this isn't the type of sport where if you try harder, necessarily you can't will something to happen in baseball, I feel. And that's the hardest part of it, right? If anything, you start squeezing the bat a little too tight, it's going to have the opposite effect. You're going to be worse, And so for this guy to kind of deliver almost on command as often as he does, is just really, I mean, it's special, and you're seeing this right now. We obviously in LA here, we get to see this every night. And I really hope that like people that are watching this don't take this for granted, because he's on the wrong side of 30 now, right?
Yeah,
this isn't going to go on forever, but it's definitely a special act. And again, I think he's going to be pumped for this, man. And it's going to be, we've seen Manny obviously in big series when he gets hot, right? He's special. Tatis is another one of those guys. I think we're going to see some fireworks this past, over the next 3 days here.
Hang on 1 second before I ask my last question. I've been on my mic. Okay, is that better, you guys? Guys, I'm not sure what's happening with my mic. If I have issues again tomorrow, I'll move. I'll buy a new computer and a new microphone. I do apologize for that. I agree with you, and hopefully, and I know the Padres fans feel this way too. So Tatis has not been the same player that I think that you're used to watching. Maybe the energy that's going to be at Petco Park on a Monday, maybe that'll wake him up. Manny Machado has been himself. Okay, last thing, and you saw this in the open of the show. It was Manny Machado who hosted Roki Sasaki for 2 days, along with Jackson Merrill, along with Joe Musgrove, and I think Ethan Salas was on that as well. Manny said he felt all along when he was hosting him, he thought LA was a done deal. Do you agree with that too? And he's not alone. I mean, a lot of teams and executives feel that way. I know I spoke with you at length before he signed, and you thought that the Padres made so much sense at the destination for Sasaki.
Yeah, what was interesting was at his introductory press conference, he got asked like, what was like the ultimate decider, and he said the stability of the front office. And I do wonder if it's kind of the stuff that happened with the Padres and their ownership situation over the offseason, if that might have not affected what happened there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's still kind of tough to get a read on this kid. He does seem a little bit kind of withdrawn. I think that the players are kind of going out of their way right now to kind of make him feel part of the team and stuff. But a lot of times, he's hanging out with like the kids of like other players and stuff, or right. And I think, again, a lot of, I think I've written about his background. Obviously this is, he's the tsunami and he losing his father, and there's something kind of there. It does feel like he's kind of carrying a lot on him. And I'm not so sure how kind of social he is. I know in Japan, I don't think he was like described as like the most like, outgoing teammate by any means. So it's not just a language barrier. So I don't know, given that answer, right. And he doesn't seem like to be like the kind of guy that like lies, I guess, just kind of like, there was a reason he said that. And I kind of wonder if maybe, because again, like Japanese people are never going to be like super expressive, right? Like when Otani signed with the Angels, I mean, they were shocked, right? I mean, they didn't know, right? I mean, I think, usually in that type of situation, you're on the listening end of things. If, as a Japanese player, you're mostly just listening. And so I think, maybe the fact that he was kind of listening and not giving very much gave them the impression like, oh, he's not that interested. But I'm not really so sure that's the case. And again, the fact that he said the stability of the front office, like, why would he say that if he wasn't considering the Padres? I just don't, you know what I mean? Like, it almost seems to be like that's what that had to be a reference to, right? I mean, what else, right? It's not like Toronto's had years of upheaval or anything, right?
Right. That could...
Yeah, you talk about stability of the front office, he's got to be talking about one team.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, I'm not sure when do they expect him back?
Oof. I mean, I don't know how seriously he's like injured. I think they're kind of slow playing everybody. That's kind of the feel right now. And even Otani, like honestly, I think if he had really wanted to, he could have been pitching by now. Right.
Wow.
In games. I think the medical staff has, under Dr. Neil Elatrage's direction, they've been taking very deliberate steps. And I think in Sasaki's case too, there's kind of this extra thing of, you look at his body, when you're like in the clubhouse and you kind of see these guys without shirts on, he's not as built as like right. There's him and there's everybody else.
He's tall and slight. He's very slight. Yeah.
Okay. And, I think that this is maybe even kind of a time for him to kind of get stronger and stuff. I think that there's been, I'd heard some things like, hey, he needs to get in the weight room more. And so my guess is that they're probably slow playing this a little bit so he can kind of maybe take care of some of the other things. So my guess, if I were to ballpark it, maybe the end of this month, early next month, he'll be back.
Oh, wow. Well, Padres and Dodgers 3 starting tonight with Dustin May versus Nick Pivetta, which on paper should be the best pitching matchup of the series. We'll see how the rest looks with Thies and Vasquez going versus TBD and Robleski tomorrow. Dylan, you're the man. By the way, before we finish, I do want to say I saw what your colleague and friend Bill Plaschke wrote yesterday on the LA Times in his fight against Parkinson's disease. I love Bill Plaschke. Been reading him in my entire life. He's been just a tremendous person to watch and to learn from. And I know you guys are close. So thinking of him, Parkinson's is a terrible disease. A lot of us will have family members that are dealing with it as well. So just all my good thoughts going to Bill Plaschke.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And yeah, for sure. Again, he was somebody I grew up in the LA area reading the Times, and he was the guy, you wanted to be like, and getting to work alongside him and getting to become his friend to me it's meant a lot. So yeah, for sure. Best of wishes to Plash.
He's the best. You're the best. Dylan, thanks so much. Hopefully I'll see you on Wednesday. I will be keeping track of all the 30-foot bat flips that the Padres are going to have according to Max Muncy tonight. So thanks again for your time. Have a great day.
All right. Same to you. See ya.
See ya. Okay, that was Dylan. That was Dylan Hernandez of the LA Times. Guys, I am so sorry for the tech issues. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's the mold in my house and the construction, but hopefully I'll figure it out tomorrow because we will have AJ Cassavell back on the show. I think earlier tomorrow talking about the first game of this series. Well, thanks again. Dustin May, Nick Pivetta. I'm sure every single game is going to be just on fire. I'm sure every game is going to be sold out. Padres and Dodgers been waiting a long time for this, and it's finally here. All right, guys, we are brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. Thank you so much for indulging me. And I'm sorry, what was that, Mr. Gordy Sexy? Use your hotspot. I don't think I have a hotspot. Maybe I should just use the Wi-Fi from my phone because I'm plugged in Ethernet through Spectrum and it still stinks. Sorry, guys. Maybe I should just move. It's a good idea. Talk to you tomorrow.
I don't know about leveling the playing field, but I think that's definitely part of their game. Is they try to, as I've said, they play off the emotion. The atmosphere here plays off their emotion, and we've seen that for the last several years, even in regular season games. Just something as simple as a single, and you see the guy throwing the bat 30 feet in the air, that really gets the crowd going here. And that's just that is kind of part of their game, is trying to get under your skin and trying to have the emotion come out and get you to do something that you're not normally doing. And just for example, if you're a pitcher and you see a guy doing that, and all of a sudden you want to throw harder, and now you're missing balls right over the plate, and that's when their guys are doing the damage. So you just can't. It's easier said than done, obviously, but yeah, you just can't let that happen.
The last one's